Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the live episode of Let's Talk About Market. The episode number 80th. If we see the Nifty index today, it has seen a meaningful decline, and I think to certain extent we had spoken about this. And the key thing was the 26,000 mark, which Nifty was not able to hold, and after that we have seen a meaningful correction in the Nifty index. So what lies ahead is something that we'll talk about, because now there are some risks that have opened up in the near term. So how, what can be the decline, or what are the possible scenarios? We'll talk about that. I think talking about the scenarios will help us understand the entire framework better, and maybe help us to trade with a lot more confidence, and exactly know what to do when. Okay, so that is what I'll try and I'll attempt in this session. Yeah, Ajay, if you can just let me know if my screen is visible, and if you're able to hear me properly. I think I had not shared screen that time, or if anyone can confirm. Okay, thanks, Akash. So, see, we had spoken about this. Basically, one was that the previous high not breaking, and after that, breaking below the 40R was the first sign, and after that, you can see it has been trending lower. And the important thing that happened yesterday was, cross of, break of important support levels. Multiple support levels. If you see, those were broken yesterday, which was this, and today we had seen a follow through of that. So these are not good signs. Now there are some positives, uh, but there are many negatives. Okay, so let's understand what is happening in the market in this 4 or 5 days of decline. What we have seen is that the I mean if you are aware, there are in all five short term indicators that we look at, right? For extreme short term, tops and bottoms, what we need is call minus put y, then swing, and so on, right? So usme most probably I would expect that call minus put histogram should come to this overbought sort of zone. uh, then this does not necessarily mean ke next day he ghum jayega, but maybe 1 or 2 days of under pressure, and then it can lead to some short term pullback. uh, but over here you notice that swing average, the average swing has not come down. Okay, so while swing has come to the bottom, uh, it still leaves some scope of a correction, which means that यहाँ पे छोटा bounce होगा in the near term, but then again there is a risk of a sell off in the coming days. Okay, then the other short term indicators, like we see the percentage of stocks with RMI buy and so on. So if you see the percentage of stocks with RMI buy, they are still somewhere in 40s, right? And this, I think, for small mid caps might be higher. Okay, no, it is lower. So in this last 2 days, it has fallen dramatically. But if you see over here, it is still at 40 and not towards the lower end. Similarly, percentage of stock above the 20 SMA, okay, that itself also is at 40. So when all these five indicators, flash towards the oversold zone, that's where you can be a lot more confident of a pullback. Else what will happen is that there will be some minor pullback, and then again it may go down. Okay, so what it does from a broader perspective is that it opens up a room for further more downside. That is because none of the indicators apart from swing and maybe call minus put, which again gives you a short term, extreme short term bottoms, like maybe 1 or 2 days or 3 days kind of bottom. So that could be possible, but when all these indicators come towards the oversold zone, that's where a probability of a meaningful bottom can come into play, which is still not in sight as of now. Okay, now, as I told you, there are some positives. So positives are that this daily swing, has come to the oversold zone. Okay, and most likely, as I mentioned, I mean, if we see the call minus put histogram, I mean, that post today's EOD data, it might end up coming over there. So this is there, but the negative is that many other indicators like average swing, diffusion, and all those guys, I mean, they are not near the oversold zone, so to say, and that's where furthermore risk appears in the near term. Okay, now the other thing, I mean, which is very critical, and this might be many of people's questions, right? कि RMI sell में है, but what to do? I mean, does it mean that it is outright sell? The answer is no, because if you see that when the markets are trending higher, normally the 20-week will hold and it will keep rising higher. Okay, so if we are in that trending market which is about to start, then ideally this average should not be broken. Okay, despite it being in sell, the risk will start emerging if the weekly is broken on a closing basis. Then you would expect that the weekly RMI will go back and complete the cycle, in which case, maybe over year or, towards the lower band, these sort of levels appear on the downside. Okay, I mean, this opens up on the downside. So that's where, I mean, see, normally what I usually think of in terms of levels is that if the 20-day breaks, then 40-day comes into the picture on the downside. If 40-day breaks on the downside, then 20-week comes on the downside. Okay, if 20-week breaks, then 40-week will come into play. 40-week breaks, then 20-month will come into play on the downside. Okay, so this is how I try and think about the levels on the downside. Okay, so as of now, 20-week was at 25,579. I mean, we have nearly touched that, not exactly. And of course, next week, this will be even a bit more higher because prior market was trending. So next week, in that sense, becomes very, very critical. Okay. Now, as I told you, I mean, those short-term indicators are so far not suggesting of a bottom yet. So what might just end up happening, I'm suspecting, is that we may just get a pullback, and in that pullback this average is somewhere, and along with this trend line might end up being resistance level, and then maybe we decline over here. Okay, that is what I am trying to think of, because the swing, I mean, the short term indicators have not turned oversold. Okay, but I would be very much open to see what is happening over here, and trying to change my I mean, and try to change my mind accordingly, because uh, in the past what has happened is that, see, don't forget that this has been a range bound market, which means that breakout का sign आता है, then again it pulls back. Okay, again breakout, it pulls back. It shows you that now a bearish thing is gonna happen, and then it again makes a comeback. So it has done this multiple times. And if it is in a range, okay, if it is in a range, then swings will be obeyed very nicely. I mean, because you see over here, I mean, in this entire sideways consolidation, over here swing bottomed out, then we saw a short term bounce. Okay, over here swing bottomed out, and then we saw a bounce. फिर यहाँ पे ये top. Okay, here this top. So basically what I'm trying to say is that if it is a range bound market, then you might end up seeing a turnaround on Monday itself. Okay, जहाँ पे we end up bouncing a bit. But if we want कि major bottom बने, then you might want all these indicators to come to the oversold zone, which is percentage of stock about 20 SMA and all. I mean, those will be where you can kind of thumb the table and say that somewhere over here the bottom can be done. But if they have to come on the downside, then Nifty index might also need to come down meaningfully, maybe towards this 25,400 levels or so. And frankly, the worst case scenario is that we end up falling towards the lower band or maybe towards this zone, That is the worst case scenario. Okay. uh, Whether it will happen or not happen, I don't know. Is there a possibility? Yes. So we need to brace ourselves for that. Okay. Just keep this in mind. I'm not saying ये confirm होगा, but you need to know what the risk is. The moment, I mean, when is it that we will try to be a lot more positive on the market, is when the prices turn around, it trades above the averages, and you see the RMI getting into bullish zone. If this happen, then the negative view might change, and we may see the up move. But the fact of the matter is that this has been a pathetic market. Okay. And one thing is for sure, that there is a lot of divergence that is there, which means you can see that the Nifty index making higher high. Okay. In fact, to certain extent, mid cap index has also made a higher high, but small cap, micro cap has not done that. So see, either one of that is wrong, right? Either Nifty is wrong, or small mid cap is wrong, which means if small mid cap is wrong, then eventually the bottom should happen and it should rise higher. Okay. And as of now, the medium to long term picture has not turned bearish. Okay. You need to understand that the medium to long term picture is not turned bearish, because all those extreme FI short readings and all those things, these are still in place, and I have been talking about it almost every day. uh, and it has not played so far. But I know that, I mean, this is not the environment where you might want to be extremely bearish. Is all I can say. I mean, for short term trader who want to chase momentum, yes, that is there. But I mean, at such readings, if you try and call कि ये correction यहाँ तक होगा, हम 22,000 आ जाएंगे and so on, because US में bubble है and so on. I mean, some black swan event has to happen for the index to come down. Else, if all being normal, if someone says that ये correction यहाँ तक आएगा, I would still say that yes, possible, acceptable. But if someone says that ये यहाँ तक आएगा, I mean, I would not expect that at this point of time, at least. And to whatever the other things, I mean, that are going on. One thing that people need to understand and realize is that, see, there can be underperformance and so on, but it cannot happen that, you know, many world markets are breaking out and we are collapsing. We may not move higher and we may turn sideways, that is possible. But to expect these are all giving multi-year breakouts and rising higher, and thinking कि निफ्टी तो ऐसे करके ऐसे हो जाएगा पूरा, right? And it might end up correcting 15-20% or so. I'm not in that camp at this point of time, but definitely, like I mentioned, I see the risk in the Nifty index. Probably, worst case, moving till year, and this weekly cycle getting completed, and coming back to the zero line. But after this, whenever there is a bullish crossover that happens, then I would start looking at it very constructively, and hoping that things will now pick up. So, and the other one and the another point, which I was highlighting, was this India VIX, right? This India VIX was at unusually low levels. uh, I mean, it kind of made people complacent and think कि अरे market नीचे आएगा ही नहीं. But we have seen that in the past 4-5 trading sessions, India VIX has started to rise higher, and Nifty has seen some correction. So probably if India VIX also comes around this zone of 12-13 or so, okay, then maybe over there, many other short-term indicators might also end up coming to that oversold zone. If the confluence of all these things happen, then somewhere around that point is where you have to start looking for a bottom. Okay. Bottom as in a durable bottom, which means if the prices have fallen this far, then if not anything, then you may end up getting 61.8% retracement or so of the entire fall. So that can be meaningful, basically. So say for example, if I'm saying that कि ये फॉल यहाँ से यहाँ आया, so this entire fall का 61.8% would be somewhere around 500 700 points ऊपर from the lowest point. So that kind of move is possible. uh, but yeah, I mean, as of now, given that swing and all is that oversold zone, some bit of pullback, 300 points, 200 points pullback is possible in the near term. But the upside seems to be capped at this point of time because there are a lot of technical pressures that are there. In fact, I don't know how many of you all have noticed this, but bank nifty, which was the strongest one, has also given a bearish crossover on the daily chart today, and it has given a bearish crossover on the weekly chart as well. So if the 20, if this 40-day breaks on the downside, okay, then it will be a big problem. Then it would mean that you have to brace yourself for a meaningful correction. And as I told you, I mean, if the 40-week breaks, then you might end up thinking that 20-week on the downside will be the next level, and so on. Okay. And basically, if this starts, I mean, gets into the sell zone, so the risk will always be there that can it go back to the zero line and complete the cycle, right? That will be the risk that will be there. So I would tend to think that uh, you know there can be some near term pressures that can be there. For a positive move, you would want Nifty, Bank Nifty, for that matter, both these indices trading above the daily averages, and the RMI also being in bullish zone. I think if those things happen, that's where we can kind of say that Nifty and all the major indices are out of the woods. Until that doesn't happen, there is a risk that definitely prevails. Okay. So I think, see, I wanted to emphasize this a lot more because you understand, I mean, so that you understand the risk in the market. Because क्या होता है कि किसी के कहने पे ले लिया and then you start getting worried. For that, that's the reason, I mean, why I try and explain you all how I think of possibilities and so on, and how do we deal with it. So that's a bit from my side. I mean, if you'll have any questions, then please let me know. I'll be happy to address it. Any questions, please let me know. Sorry, B bulls is medium term top formed in metals. Most of them have fallen sharply. Uh, See, I would just say this much, that the medium term structure. So I am not sure what do you mean by medium term top. Frankly, uh, yes, a case of a deeper correction will start appearing if this trend line is broken on the downside. Then this might end up becoming a false breakout, and then the pain can arise. Okay, but if this trend line is held, then I would expect that there can be some bit of consolidation here and there, some base formation, and then again it will start rising higher. So it is either the breakout or the averages, that you need to watch out for. The worst case would be the averages that should not be broken on the downside. I mean, if this breakout is also broken on the downside and averages also break on the downside, uh, things can get ugly. Okay, I mean, which means, by ugly, what I mean is that it can probably correct till year or so on. But from a medium to long term perspective, I mean, I am very much thinking that metal index can do well, because as I mentioned earlier, uh, just to give you a perspective, metal index metal index has seen a meaningful breakout. Okay, I mean, this is like a 2008 se leke 2023, it was in one range, which means it is almost 15 years. Okay, before it broke above the previous high. So you need to understand the implications of that. Now, for you, a medium term correction can be this. Then yes, these are all possibilities. I mean, from a medium to long term perspective, even if it falls back to this, in a larger scheme of things, it will still be bullish. Okay, so please try and understand the context. Okay, uh, so this is the case. And the other thing is that if you see, the weekly negative close has also happened, so this makes the recent high also somewhat important. Okay, but as I told you, I mean, as long as it is above the averages, and that this breakout zone, if all this is holding out pretty well, I wouldn't be too much worried about it. It's only when this breaks on the downside, that's where, if you'll have formed that medium term position, I mean, even I might start getting nervous and start thinking that can there be a possibility of a correction till here or till here. Okay. See, we cannot know right at the start कि ये correction कितना बड़ा होने वाला है, because we also kind of figure out along the way. But when risk emerges, it is also prudent कि पहले बेचो बाद में सोचो, right? It should not be that कि, every day you're thinking and every day it is falling, and then suddenly you are with a big fall in your I mean, suddenly there is a big fall in your portfolio, and then you can't book out because you think अरे ये already बहुत नीचे आ गया, right? So it is like probably to react first and then think what to do. Because अगर घूम गया market, तो it is all, I mean, you can always come back in the market, right? But if you know that there are some risks that are there and things can get ugly, then maybe that is something that you might want to do. I hope that answers your question. mm, Baburaj, I can't get into stocks. I mean, it would be a conflict because we already do that in India chart, so I hope you understand. Look back period on heat map gives us a better, does give better than other sectors. How about this time when a lot of negativity is there? So yes, Deepak, जहाँ पे correction खत्म होता है और there is a potential to say कि correction खत्म होगा, which means that, say all the sentiment comes into negative zone, short term wale like percentage of RMI and all have come to that oversold zone. वो टाइम पे हीट मैप पे लगा के देखने का कि फ्रॉम द एंटायर डिक्लाइन दैट हैज हैपेंड और फ्रॉम सम लो टू हाई और समथिंग लाइक दैट, which are the ones that are you know outperforming. Maybe those are the ones that we may want to spot at that time. uh, right now it is too early to do it, because up tak, if it has to get, I mean, if this fall has to uh, get a bit more stretched, then there will be stocks that may end up getting sold off. And in fact जो अब तक strong है, there is a possibility कि उसमें भी last leg में selling आ सकता है. So that is why the advice would be to wait for it, for those all the indicators to come towards that oversold zone. And of course, I mean, weekend maybe you can just try out and analyze कि हाँ अब तक ये sectors outperform कर रहे हैं, and then you see what happens in the coming week, and see how those strong stocks, I mean strong sectors have done it. If they continue to outperform, then there is a very high possibility कि जब change होगा trend, तब those will be the ones that will do very very well. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Akash says please show FI plus client. Okay, so Akash, if you want to do that, you have to go to the sentiment indicators. Okay, अभी यहाँ पे मान लो मैंने FI का किया है. Okay, click on indicators. Okay, यहाँ पे ना ये सेम लिखने का क्लाइंट नेट इंडेक्स फ्यूचर पोजीशन, तो ये नीचे आ जाएगा. ओके, देन आई वुड से DII नेट इंडेक्स पोजीशन. ओके, तो ये तीनों एक साथ नीचे आ गए. नाउ आपको अगर ऐसे सेव करना है कि पार्टिसिपेंट पोजीशनिंग टेम्पलेट, पार्टिसिपेंट पोजीशनिंग टेम्पलेट. ओके, ये बना दिया इसे, तो ये सेव हो जाएगा। नाउ यू जस्ट रिफ्रेश इट। ओके, रिफ्रेश में ये डिफॉल्ट आया, बट नाउ यू गो टू टेम्पलेट एंड यहाँ पे डू पार्टिसिपेंट पोजिशनिंग टेम्पलेट, so you will end up getting this template what you have saved. Okay, I hope that answers your question, Akash. स्ट्राइक पर वैल्यूएशन कहाँ देखते हैं, उसका इम्पोर्टेंस देना चाहिए या नहीं? तो अजय जी, इसका आंसर यही है कि आप अगर मीडियम टू लॉन्ग टर्म इन्वेस्टर हो और आप फंडामेंटल्स देखते हो या बिलीव करते हो, तो आपको देखना चाहिए। बट आप ऐसे नहीं कर सकते हो कि वैल्यूएशंस बहुत चीप है तो चलो ले लिया और फिर 3 दिन नहीं चला तो आप फ्रस्ट्रेट हो जाओगे, क्योंकि वैल्यूएशंस और ये सब मीडियम टर्म के लिए अगर आप देखना चाहते हो तो आपके लिए बहुत सही है, बिकॉज इट गिव्स यू सेफ्टी नेट। बट इफ यू आर अ मोमेंटम ट्रेडर देन लुक एट टेक्निकल्स। इफ you are a medium term investor where you want good stocks at good prices and you're ready to wait for things to turn around and have a lot more higher time horizon, then वो सब केसेस में वैल्यूएशंस वगैरह काम आता है। अभी आपने पूछा कि वैल्यूएशंस कहाँ देखने मिलेगा, तो यहाँ पे मैं मान लो कि मैंने आईटीसी कर दिया, ठीक है। आईटीसी में जाऊंगा, इधर फंडामेंटल्स में जाऊंगा। ओके, फंडामेंटल्स में जाके ये जो समरी है, तो ये हर एक स्क्रीन का छोटा छोटा समरी हमने बनाया है। तो यहाँ पे वैल्यूएशंस को मैं एक्सपैंड करके, ओके, मैं इसको मैक्स, या आपको जो भी टाइम फ्रेम देखना है, 1 ईयर, 3 ईयर, 5 ईयर, जो भी आपको टाइम फ्रेम देखना है आप वो कर सकते हो, एंड इससे आपको वैल्यूएशंस पता चल जाएंगे। ओके, आई आई होप आपको पता चला अजय जी। Hi Jay, what are your views in small NBFCs in today's weak market? Also, there are many that are bullish, and some are about to break IPO high. So, Deepak, I would just say this, that I mean, it is right that they are outperforming, and some are good as well, frankly. But what happens is that जब selling बहुत बढ़ जाता है, okay, and when it catches like a fire, then everything gets sold left, right, and center. Okay, will we get into that situation? I don't know. In such cases, the best thing is to keep just trailing with the averages, either 20 or 40 on hourly, daily, whatever you are comfortable with. Okay, based on what your time horizon is. That's how you have to just trail and keep riding it, because I understand that they are outperformers and all those things, but sometimes it so happens that it doesn't take much time for them to just collapse and get beaten down. And especially when this is q2, I mean q3 result, you have to be very very careful of the results as well. Okay, so I would just say, if you have it and if they are performing very well, try trailing it. Okay, because if they are not falling when the correction is happening, there is a good chance that there is some upside that would be left. So what will happen is that when there is a pullback in the market, they are the ones that will probably make new highs and rise higher further. Okay, so it's about trying, it's about kind of sacrificing some sort of returns in the hope that they are strong and they can rise higher. Okay, it's the balancing out act that you will have to do. I mean, what do you want to prioritize, the gains, or you are okay to give up some gains for risking some gains in the hope that it can rise higher further? So see, I'll just give you a case in point. I think I had spoken about South Indian Bank pehle bhi, right? So it was forming some kind of triangle pattern. I thought it eventually turned out to be a range and so on. And so far it is very, very strong, right? Something like this. It is very strong. अभी मुझे इसमें ये लगेगा कि अरे ये तो मार्केट अभी तक गिरा नहीं है, एंड आई मीन गिर भी गया है, एंड दिस इज होल्डिंग आउट वेल, सो इट इज पॉसिबल कि यहाँ से ऐसे करे, and I cannot rule that out, right? So The question is that am I willing to give up this gains? Okay, अगर नीचे गिर गया तो, because this according to me will be the deciding factor, the 40 day, because you can see that वो जब trend होता है ना तो वो ज्यादा उसके नीचे sustain नहीं करता है. So if 40-day breaks, then I'll start getting a bit nervous. If not, I would hope that it will rise higher. Okay, I hope that answers your question, Deepak. Uh, uh, Deepak says need details for subscription based service. Subscription based services. Can you? What do you mean by that? Need details for? I don't know, Deepak, what you're trying to say, but you can probably raise a ticket over here. Go to help, raise a ticket, and जो भी relevant ये है जो भी relevant topic है, you just click on that help करके, others करके, and you write a subject, and someone from a team will get back to you, and you can just ask them that I need details on this, please call me back, and they will probably revert you back. Okay, Deepak? Mohan, are you seeing sectors promising technically and in the view of upcoming budget? No, no, no. So I am not in those camp that you speculate based on the hope of something. I mean, if something is strong, it is for some reason strong. So it's not that के budget में ये होगा तो इसलिए ये अच्छा है. You need to see them on the merit at this point of time, frankly, because the view has to, I mean, because Nifty has become bearish. I mean, even if there is something strong, I will suspect that they are vulnerable for correction, right? It's only when Nifty kind of stabilizes and gives some hope of a turnaround, that's where we might probably switch back and start thinking which were the strong sectors in this while, I mean, in this correction, and then we'll see uh, how things go along. I i i hope that answers your question. Modern uh, what is going on M&M auto stock? So I'm refraining from talking about stocks, but if you see M&M, sorry, I mean, if you see auto index, it is more or less trending so far. Okay, but now some risks are emerging that this important support level can break. Does it translate into deeper correction? I don't know, but this can sort of be the trailing level, which is the 40-day exponential average. If it breaks and starts sustaining below that, then the risk will be that कि ये जो RMI सेल में है, ओके, तो वो 20 वीक टेस्ट होगा, 40 वीक टेस्ट होगा, और शायद इधर तक भी आ सकता है. दैट विल बी द रिस्क दैट will very much open up if the 40-day breaks on the downside. So this is something that you need to keep in mind. Okay. uh, Deepak, India charts. So, Deepak, you can go to India charts. So strike, maybe you can put and raise that ticket, or you can go to India charts and you can do that. Contact us and you just leave your name and email ID, and one of the representative will call you back. Okay. I hope I have answered your queries. I think it's 5:35 now. Probably trying time to end the session. But go. I mean, see, right now the markets are not good. Frankly, if you tell me can we short in this market, the answer would be no. Because the medium term outlook is positive. I mean, at least I am positive. वो अगर 24,500 भी निफ्टी आया तो I would try and think more on the bullish side, because I'll tell you very honestly, I mean, whenever I've gone against the sentiment indicators, I've burnt my fingers. And if at all, I would even if I want to short or think of shorting, um, I would just play it for a day or two. That's it. मैं ऐसे नहीं रहेगा कि लेके I'll keep holding it, thinking कि अरे 24,500 आएगा, so every bounce I'll ignore. No, because there will be constant fear in my mind that things will turn around. Okay, that is because that is what the medium term sentiment indicators are showing to us. I know. I mean, it has been in this oversold zone for quite some time now, and you people might be thinking कि अरे ये नहीं चलता है. Uh, I don't know कब चलेगा, कैसे चलेगा, what will be the trigger. But when it happens, the rallies are usually furious. Okay, and you will be caught on the wrong side. I have experienced this in the past in a very hard way. I'll tell you, one instance of that. So wait, let me share my screen. That time though, all the logics were also intact. Okay, and yet this happened. So to all those guys who know, so okay, let me just do till here so that you understand the context. Okay, so election के पहले ना, or at least ये ट्रम्प आने के पहले, so whenever this contract used to go towards this lower end of the range, at that time a major bottom used to occur. Okay, and that day, on this election day, when we had a 6% decline, and at some point we were 7-8% or so, I was wondering that at such oversold levels, how can the Nifty index fall more? And also, Nifty index on the weekly chart was at the lower band, and at the lower band and 40. And I was wondering, with such bearish sentiment and bands and averages being so tight, how can the market fall? Okay, though my logic and my mind was saying that, okay, now this is they haven't got a majority, reforms won't be passed, this that, all those things I had on my mind. But you see what Nifty index did next. In fact, to be very honest, I had even shorted over here, and I burnt my i mean I mean I made loss over here, when I had shorted, and it was meaningful loss because everything was moving like 5, 5, 10% in a day. So volatility was at crazy volatility around this time. So that's where I have told you. Of course, I did not burn it as much as I would have done it earlier, but one thing I know for the fact is that if you try and trade against sentiments, sooner or later it will hurt you. Now, sentiment is also sometimes like RSI and so on. It can remain oversold for quite some time until we don't have that reversal. यहाँ पे तो Nifty is at an all-time high and the sentiment is at extreme level on the downside. That is what bothers me, frankly. Uh, had it been down, so I would say that okay, momentum is with bears and they can screw the market. But यहाँ पे तो price action is actually bullish, right? From a medium term perspective. Yes, you can argue that short term it's bearish and some bit of more downside could be left. But from a medium term perspective, it is still not decisively broken on the downside. So if that is not the case, then I wouldn't bet big on shorting things. I would rather try to find के opportunities कहाँ पे है, so that when the turnaround happens, you are the first one to capture it. And because you are already having that mindset कि यहाँ पे turnaround होगा, so that is how I am thinking at this point of time. I'll try to communicate, how I'm thinking, what made me change my mind, and all those things in the live sessions that we do. Because over here I have to stick my neck out and say something, right? So of course, and I'll be held for that also. कि अरे तुमने तो ये बोला था. So whenever I'm giving some views, I will always try and back it up with logic. And if something is broken on that logic, then I might start getting a bit worried. Okay, so let's see how things unfold in the near term. Given that swing is at an extreme low, maybe 100, 200, 300 points can be seen as a pullback. uh, hourly averages, daily averages needs to be broken on the upside for you to be a lot more comfortable saying, "Okay, boss, now turnaround has happened." Okay, so these are the thoughts from my side at this point of time. Let's see how market behaves on Monday. Okay. So once again, thanks a lot for joining today, and happy weekend. And see you all on Monday at 5 p.m.